Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 greatest Liszt pianists. Boy, that's hard to say. Liszt pianists. That's a tongue twister. Try and do that 10 times as fast as you can. But there are 5 of them. Only 5 of them. And, I know you folks are going to have your own choices. This is going to be so much fun. Only 5, please. No honorable mentions. No, I would replace this one with that one. No, just give me your list. Please give me your list. Yeah, it's going to be a listless list. Otherwise, it'll be a listless list, right? Okay, never mind. Enough of that nonsense. Okay, look, there are many great pianists who've played Liszt, but what they all have in common, I think, and I hope yours will too, is that they really take him seriously as a great composer. I know that's saying a lot, but maybe that's a foolish idea because all great artists take themselves seriously and the music that they play seriously. But, Liszt is a special case, a wonderful study in musical aesthetics, because so many people consider him shallow and vapid and lacking in taste and trashy and flamboyant and all of those negative qualities, a circus act, a showman. He was all of those things, but he was also a genius, and he was also an amazing composer. And there's so much great stuff that we seldom get to hear. And so here are my 5 great Liszt pianists. First, György Cziffra. Oh, we have to have him on the list, don't we? Now, he was a flamboyant virtuoso, but also a very, very serious artist. I mean, a deeply emotional and intense artist. He had no problem making fast and loose with the text if he felt like it. Not all of his recordings are sonically marvelous, but when you hear him play Liszt, you get this sense, and this is true of a couple of the people on this list, that he is recreating the music on the spot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. His transcendental etudes are sometimes transcendental and sometimes, maybe a little less. And, he rewrites bits of things, but it's all the result of a seriousness of intent, which is really, really impressive. And he was a law unto himself. He really was. And, artists like that don't usually make lists of the best whatever because they're too eccentric. But Liszt is one of those composers who invites you to do that, because you have to remember, Liszt never played anything the same way twice. He published a zillion versions of the same music over and over and over, and it was never the same. Every time he played something, it was as if he was recomposing it on the basis of, improvising it then and there. And so an element of that is okay in Liszt music. It's even welcome. It's particularly welcome when it comes to our next great Liszt pianist, Sergio Fiorentino, who left us about 6 or 7 discs worth of Liszt, thank God, because, his discography is very patchy and strange. But Liszt was one of his major things. And he played Liszt like he was writing the music. It's sort of similar to Cziffra, but I think with a little bit more, I don't know, maybe a little bit more purpose. It's a little bit less wacky and a little bit more purposeful, but this is all very generic. Fiorentino was a tremendous Liszt pianist. When I was doing the video for, best recordings of the Mephisto Waltz, #1, and I got to Fiorentino, and I'm like sitting there with the music and listening to what he's doing, it really, really sounded like he was just making it up as he went along in the best possible way. I mean, the dynamics were different. Everything was, but it was fantastic. And there's a lot of stuff, everything from the concertos and the sonata and the first book of Annales de Pèlerinage. It's really fabulous, interesting, probing, fresh, new Liszt playing. And so he's on the list. Then Michele Campanella. I think he is one of the most underrated Liszt guys out there. He recorded the complete Hungarian Rhapsodies for Philips. It's still the reference recording. Those are amazing performances. And then recently, Brilliant Classics released a disc of his of late Liszt, with like the Hungarian historical portraits and some of those really strange late pieces. He is absolutely spot on in everything that he does. He has the virtuosity to burn, but again, there's always this sort of thoughtfulness behind the way he does it, the way he relates tempos to one another. Listen to his second Hungarian Rhapsody. I mean, just the way he handles rubato. It's just amazing. Amazing Liszt playing. It fabulously enjoyable. After Michele Campanella, there is, Lazar Berman. Lazar Berman, of course, for the Années de Pèlerinage. That's just an amazing set. It really is on Deutsche Grammophon. And, and there's some other stuff with him. There's not a lot. I remember seeing him do the second piano concerto live at Avery Fisher Hall with Yevgeny Svetlanov and the Moscow Symphony or the USSR Symphony, whatever they were at those times. They were such a motley crew. They looked disheveled and sort of sad, but they played like air raid sirens were going off. Everything. I mean, the flute sounded like an air raid siren. You've never heard anything so loud. And Berman played on, I think it was like a Fazioli piano. It was one of those, like a tandem truck, with different parts attached to it. It was like it had 2 or 3, parts of its lid, sticking up there. It was a huge piano, grand piano, and they just reduced that piece to kindling. I mean, by the time it was over, I have never heard a piano concerto played at that level of volume, and it was exciting. My God, it was exciting. Berman was a tremendous pianist, absolutely marvelous, and his Liszt was really sui generis. I mean, it was powerful, and it was virtuosic, and it had depth where the music had depth, and it had shallowness where the music had shallowosity. Really just fantastic Liszt playing, and a thrill even now to re-listen to that set. Finally, last but not least, it has to be on the list. It has to be Claudio Arrau. And Arrau, the wonderful thing about Arrau, I think, is that he played everything with equal seriousness. I mean, he didn't care if it was Liszt or Beethoven or God knows what else. I mean, it was done with that gorgeous, deep, sort of burnished, that's the word everyone uses, burnished keyboard timbre, with the weighted, the sound weighted toward the bass, always with this firm bottom, and he took his time. And he had virtuosity to burn, but you never thought about it. I mean, he made one of the greatest recordings ever of the Transcendental Etudes, but you wouldn't think of Arrau necessarily as one of those flash-in-the-pan Transcendental Etude guys. He also made my reference recording of the Liszt Sonata, which is just exceptional, absolutely exceptional, and a whole bunch of other things that he did by Liszt. It really, remember, he was a student of Liszt. He had the direct contact. He also used Bebung, vibrato, in his piano playing, which of course you can't really do on a piano, but there's a way to sort of fake it, where you push the keys down, and then while they're down, you sort of wiggle them. He said he used Bebung in the Dante Sonata, I think, or one of the Petrarch Sonata things, and Années de Pèlerinage. He used Bebung. He learnt it from his teacher, who learnt it from Liszt, who believed that vibrato is important. And Liszt actually wrote vibrato into his piano parts, by the way, just in case you didn't know. And he meant it in the traditional sense, because he uses it exactly the same way in his vocal parts too. So it's very interesting. I wrote a paper about that. So, there you go. But Claudio Arrau's Liszt is absolutely amazing. And it's also Liszt for people who think that Liszt is junk. I remember I did, the 10 classical music's 10 dirtiest secrets. One of them was Liszt is trash. And I got all kinds of comments from people. Why are you talking about Liszt if you think he's trash? Well, because people have no sense of humor, obviously, in the classical music world. But Liszt is assuredly not trash. And when he is trash, it's usually really good trash. And there's a lot to be said for good trash, isn't there? It's like junk food. We all love it, even though we pretend that we don't. So, the 5 greatest Liszt pianists, there they are, hands down, beyond any possible cavil. And I am really looking forward to seeing your list of the 5 greatest Liszts. The Liszt list. Let's see it. And keep on listening, friends. Take care.